The rain had been falling since before dawn, that slow Kansas rain that hums against the glass and makes silence feel alive. I could hear it from my hospital bed. Steady, patient, like it knew something I didn't. The room smelled like disinfectant and endings. Machines hummed in rhythm with a heart that wasn't sure it still wanted the job. I looked at my hands, old hands, the kind that built a house, raised a daughter, buried a wife. That house on Willow Creek. Every nail in its frame, every crack in its walls carried her laughter. It was the last promise I ever made to Mary. And a man doesn't break a promise like that, not even when time does. Then my phone buzzed, just a small sound. But sometimes that's how your life ends quietly. Property transfer completed. 814 Willow Creek Drive. My house, my name, my daughter's signature. For a long while I couldn't move. The rain outside sounded like applause for something cruel. I tried to call her. She answered calm, distant. "Dad," she said, "don't worry. I took care of everything." Then the line went dead. Thunder rolled across the plains, and in that moment I knew some storms start outside your window, and some begin inside your own blood. She sold my house while I was in the hospital, but she forgot one thing: a house built on love doesn't give up its owner that easily. The rain had been falling since before dawn, the kind of steady Kansas rain that hums against the glass and turns silence into rhythm. I could hear it through the window by my hospital bed, soft and distant, reminding me that life outside kept moving, even when mine had slowed to a crawl. The heart monitor ticked beside me, one beat at a time. 23 days since surgery. 23 days of the same hallway noises, the same careful smiles from nurses who spoke in soft voices, as if pain could be hushed. I tried to drink the hospital coffee, but it had cooled like everything else in that room. The nurse brought me the morning paper and my phone. There was an email waiting, the subject line short and sharp. Property transfer completed. 814 Willow Creek Drive. At first I thought it was junk mail. I opened it anyway and read the words twice before they began to make sense. The message said my house had been transferred and recorded by Sedgwick County. My house. I blinked at the screen, hoping I'd read it wrong. I reached for my glasses, then read it again. The words stayed the same, solid and cold. I called Amanda. It took 3 rings before she picked up. "Dad, how are you feeling?" Her voice sounded smooth, controlled, the way people sound when they've practiced too long to hide something. I ignored the question. "What's this email I got about the house?" She was quiet for a few seconds. I could hear the faint tapping of a keyboard. Then she said, "Dad, don't worry about that. I took care of everything. You just rest." "Amanda, what do you mean you took care of it?" Her tone shifted, calm but firm, like she was talking to a client, not her father. "You need to trust me on this. Everything's fine." And then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, waiting for it to light up again. It didn't. The heart monitor clicked on steady as before, pretending nothing had changed. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, beating against the window like it was trying to get in. The nurse came in to check the IV. She smiled, said I was healing well, asked if I needed anything. I said no, thank you, and when she left I sat still for a long time, staring at my reflection in the dark window. That house wasn't just an address. It was 30 years of my life. I could see it in my mind as clearly as if I were standing there. The porch I built with my own hands, the swing that creaked in the wind, the oak floors Mary and I sanded until midnight because we couldn't afford to hire anyone. Mary. I could almost hear her laugh, light and quick the way she laughed, when flour dusted her nose while baking. She loved that house. We both did. She called it the only promise we ever kept. When she died, I told her I'd keep it. That was the last promise I made her. I thought about Amanda then, about how her voice had changed over the years. Less warmth, more purpose. She had worked her way up in real estate, talking about market shifts and equity, as if those words could fill the quiet in her life. After her divorce, I helped her with the bills. She said she'd pay me back someday. I told her not to worry. Family doesn't keep score. Maybe she refinanced the house to cover medical costs, I thought. God knows I'd signed more forms than I remembered. Maybe it was just a mistake. But something about her voice didn't sound like a mistake. It sounded like finality. The next morning, the doctor came in. He told me I was healing well, maybe home soon. He said it with that practiced optimism they all used, the kind that doesn't expect you to answer. I nodded at the right moments, but heard none of it. Later, when the room was quiet again, I looked through the email once more. It wasn't spam. It had the county seal, the digital timestamp, the signatures. Because my name was still listed on the record, the notice had been sent to me before the title was officially changed. The buyer was Fairland Development. I read that name over and over until it blurred. Fairland had been trying to buy up that neighborhood for years. I'd turned them down every time. Now they owned the place because my daughter had signed it away. I put the phone down, careful not to drop it. The hollowness in my chest wasn't from the surgery. It was something heavier, older. That night I couldn't sleep. I rubbed the gold ring on my finger, the one I'd worn since 1978, the metal thin from decades of habit. When I took it off, the pale band beneath my skin looked like a scar that would never fade. At some point, the nurse came in for rounds. She noticed I was still awake and asked if I needed anything. Just one thing, I said. If anything happens to me, there's a small iron key in my coat pocket. Make sure my lawyer gets it. His name is Samuel Briggs. She nodded and said she'd remember. She didn't ask what it was for. When she left, I reached for the coat draped over the chair. The key was still there, cool against my palm. I'd made it myself years ago when I was still working at the plant. It opened the basement door under the kitchen floor, a place no one used anymore. Mary used to call it my secret place. She said one day I'd have to open it again for the right reason. I hadn't thought about that in years. I turned the key over once more, feeling the worn edges. Somewhere inside me, I knew the reason had come. The rain stopped before morning. The sky outside the window looked washed clean, like a world starting over. I reached for the cup of coffee left by my bed. It had gone cold again. I thought about Amanda and how far we'd drifted. I used to believe you couldn't lose family, not really. Now I wasn't so sure. When the nurse came in again, she said I looked better. I nodded, said I felt better too. But I didn't. Something inside had shifted during the night. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a decision. I set the empty cup down, leaned back against the pillow, and stared at the fading rain streaks on the glass. Amanda had sold my house while I was lying in a hospital bed. Maybe she thought she was helping me. Maybe she thought it didn't matter. But what she forgot, what she could never understand until much later, was that the house she sold wasn't built from wood and nails. It was built from promises. And promises once broken have a way of finding their way back. The air outside the hospital felt thin and bright after all those days of recycled air and fluorescent lights. The sky over Kansas was a flat winter blue sharp around the edges, the kind of sky that makes you squint, even when the sun is not fully out. I moved slowly across the parking lot, one hand on my chest, without thinking, feeling the pull of stitches under the thin fabric of the hospital shirt. Every step reminded me that my body was not the same as it once was. The cab driver took my small bag, opened the trunk, and waited while I eased myself into the back seat. He asked where to, and I gave him the address on Willow Creek without looking up. We drove in silence. The city gave way to fields and low houses, the kind that sit close to the earth and seem to sink into it over the years. Water still clung to the ditches from the rain. The land looked washed clean and tired at the same time. When the cab turned onto the gravel road, my hand tightened on the armrest. This was the road I had taken 1,000 times coming home from late shifts or grocery runs, knowing that at the end of it, there would be a porch light and a white front door. This time, there was a gate. It stood across the driveway, metal and out of place. A thick chain looped through the latch. On the post beside it, someone had nailed a bright red sign. The words were large and simple. Sold Fairland Development. For a moment, I just stared. The cab rolled to a stop, and I could feel the driver looking at the gate in the mirror. He asked if I wanted him to wait. I told him I would be all right. My voice did not sound like mine. When he drove off, the crunch of tires faded down the road, leaving only the sound of the wind moving through the bare trees. I walked up to the gate and laid my hand on the cold metal. The yard beyond looked wrong. The lines were still there, the shape of it was the same, but the details had been scraped away. The rose bushes along the fence were gone, leaving raw dirt and a few broken stems. The flower bed under the front window had been dug up. The apple tree still stood near the side of the yard, but one of its main branches had been cut clean, leaving a pale wound. Sap had dried along the bark, a brown sheen where it used to run clear. That tree had never grown straight. It leaned a little stubborn against the wind, like it refused to give in. A man in a yellow hard hat stood near the porch with a clipboard. He was measuring something, scratching notes boots in the mud eyes on his work. I called out to him and asked who had let him onto the property. He looked up, glanced at the sign, then at me. He said that the old owner had moved out to a nursing home, that the company had rights to be there now. I did not correct him. I did not tell him that the old owner was standing 10 feet away with stitches in his chest and a key in his pocket. He went back to his measurements. To him, it was just a job, just another yard on another day. I stayed there at the gate, hand on the cold metal. I could feel my heartbeat against my palm, a slow, tired thud that did not match the tightness in my throat. From the corner of my eye, I saw a figure moving across the neighboring lawn. Henry Baker stepped out from behind his truck, his familiar flannel shirt buttoned crooked, a mug of coffee in his hand. His hair was thinner, his shoulders a little more rounded than I remembered, but his eyes were the same sharp and steady. He called my name and walked over coffee sloshing near the rim of the mug. "Ed, he said you gave us a scare." "I heard you were in the hospital." I nodded, eyes still on the yard. "Looks like I missed some things," I answered. Henry followed my gaze. His jaw tightened when he saw the sign. He set his mug on the fence post and folded his arms. "She came by last week," he said. "Amanda." She had a man with her slick suit shiny car. He did not bother to hide the distaste in his voice. He paused, searching my face as if checking how much I already knew. "They talked about some project Henry went on, said there were plans for a new development. You were not here, and she said you had moved on." I felt my hand move to my chest again, fingers pressing lightly where the surgeon had cut. The stitches pulled a quiet reminder that pain rarely waits for permission. Moved on, I repeated more to myself than to him. Henry shifted his weight. "I figured you had signed off on it, Ed." She sounded sure of herself. I did not think it was my place to ask questions. "You did what anyone would have done," I said. "We all like to believe the people we love know what they are doing." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "If you need anything, you knock on my door. Rules cannot fix everything, but they can fix some things. And I still remember a few." He tried to smile. I gave him the closest thing to a smile I could manage. When he walked back to his house, I stayed where I was. The man in the hard hat had moved closer to the apple tree, now taking more measurements, marking things I did not understand on his clipboard. I wondered what Mary would have said if she could see this. She had planted that tree because she liked the idea of something growing with us, something that would still bear fruit after we were gone. She used to stand under it with a basket sunlight in her hair, calling out to Amanda to come help. Now it had been cut by someone who did not know our names. The strength went out of my legs all at once. I held on to the gate until the world steadied. For a moment I thought about climbing over, walking up to the front door, testing the knob, just to see if it still turned for me. Then I let go. A locked gate and a sign were not just metal and wood. They were a message. I turned and walked back down the gravel road. My steps sounded small against the stones. The sky had darkened the blue, fading to a dull gray that settled heavy over the fields. There was a motel not far from the highway, a place I had passed 100 times without ever needing it. A 2-story building with faded paint and a buzzing sign rooms that faced the parking lot curtains drawn halfway in every window. The lobby smelled like old coffee and cleaning chemicals. The woman at the front desk barely looked up as I checked in. I gave my name-slid cash across the counter, took a key with a plastic fob that read Room 12. In the room, the air conditioner grumbled to life when I flipped the switch. The light overhead was too bright, washing everything in a flat, white glow. The bed sagged when I sat down. I took the iron key from my pocket and laid it on my palm. It left a faint indentation in the skin. I had carried it so long that my hand knew its shape better than my mind did. Mary had always teased me about that basement, said every man needed a place the world had forgotten, just to feel like something was his alone. No one had forgotten it as completely as I had hoped. Somewhere along the way, someone else had remembered it, too. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. A stain in the corner resembled the outline of a state, maybe Texas, if you turned your head just right. It made me think of all the highways I had ever driven, all the times I had headed home knowing exactly what waited for me at the end of the road. Now, for the first time, there was no home waiting. Just a locked gate and a sign with someone else's name. I closed my eyes and tried to picture Amanda as she had been, not as she was now. 6-years-old hair tangled from the wind, knees scraped from climbing that crooked apple tree, laughing as Mary scolded her gently. Somewhere along the way, she had grown into a woman who signed documents without telling me, who used words like asset and opportunity, who could stand in my yard and tell people I had moved on. I could not decide which version of her hurt more. Outside, a truck rolled by on the highway, the low rumble shaking the thin walls for a moment. Headlights swept across the curtain and slipped through a gap in the fabric. The light struck the nightstand where I had set the key, making the metal glint briefly before the room fell dim again. I watched that brief flare of light, the way it lit up the worn edges of the iron. For a heartbeat, it made the room feel less empty. Then, it passed. The air conditioner settled into a steady hum, a tired machine doing its best to keep things bearable. I listened to it, to the silence between its rattles, to the faint whisper of wind outside. I knew I could not walk back into my house, not yet. But I also knew that a line on a paper could not erase everything that had been built there. The key was still mine. The memory of the floor above that basement was still mine. The promise I had made to Mary, whether I had kept it perfectly or not, was still mine. I reached over, touched the key one more time, feeling its cool weight beneath my fingertips. Outside the window, the wind pressed against the glass, carrying some thin, distant sound that might have been leaves or might have been rain far away. It sounded like something trying to find its way back. Morning came in quietly, a flat gray light pressing against the motel curtains. The sound outside had changed, no longer the restless wind of the night, but the soft hiss of tires on damp pavement somewhere beyond the parking lot. I got dressed slower than I wanted to, every movement reminding me that the surgeon had been inside my chest not long ago. When I slipped the iron key into my pocket, it felt heavier than it had the night before. Henry's truck pulled into the lot a little after 8. He parked in front of my door and let the engine idle. I stepped out, pulled the door shut behind me, and walked over. He leaned across the seat and pushed the passenger door open. "You sleep at all, Ed?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Some," I said. "Enough." He studied my face for a second, then nodded. He shifted the truck into gear, and we rolled out onto the road. The sky hung low over the fields, the edges of the clouds stained a darker gray. We did not talk for the first few miles. There was not much to say that the silence had not already covered. When we turned onto Willow Creek Drive, the landscape felt both familiar and foreign. The same mailboxes, the same sagging fences, the same line of cottonwoods along the ditch. Only my driveway had changed. The metal gate stood where the gravel met the street, the chain still wrapped around the latch. The Fairland Development sign was bright against the dull morning, clean and red and certain. Henry pulled over on the opposite side of the road and cut the engine. We sat there for a moment in the quiet cab, looking at the house from a distance. "You sure you want to get out?" he asked. "I am," I said. We stepped down onto the wet shoulder. The gravel gave under my shoes, the damp air smelling of earth and cold. We stayed on our side of the road just far enough back that anyone driving by would not think twice about two old men staring at a property that no longer belonged to one of them. I took out my phone and opened the camera. My hands were steady enough. The driveway told its own story. Deep tire ruts cut into the softened gravel, looping in closer to the porch than I ever drove. Fresh marks. Not the pattern of someone leaving for the last time, but of people arriving again and again. Near the bottom step, I saw the folder. A manila file half sunk into the mud, one corner bent. I zoomed in with the phone, and then walked a few steps closer, careful to stop at the edge of the ditch, not crossing onto the property. Fairland Development was stamped across the front, the ink bold despite the wet. The logo sat above it, sharp lines meant to look modern and trustworthy. To me, it just looked like someone else's name on my life. Henry muttered under his breath. I could not catch all the words, but the tone was enough. Then I saw the print. Just to the side of the folder, the mud held the shape of a shoe, narrow at the toe heel, sunk deep where the weight had come down. The outline was clean edges, crisp from recent pressure. Not a work boot, not a sneaker. A high heel. My breath caught in a way that had nothing to do with the surgery. Amanda's size. My daughter had never liked heels. She used to joke that they were for people pretending to be taller and more confident than they really were. For years she lived in sneakers and flats, even at events where everyone else dressed up. Then she met Derek. Without thinking, I stepped off the gravel and down into the ditch, stopping just short of where the property line began. I crouched a little, the stitches in my chest protesting, and reached my hand toward the mark. My fingers hovered there, inches above the print. I could have touched it, could have smeared the edge and broken its shape, but I pulled my hand back. It did not need my fingerprint on it. Henry watched me. He did not say her name. He did not have to. He cleared his throat. Fairland tried to buy this strip 10 years back. You remember that. I straightened as best I could and stepped back onto the gravel. I remember I said. They made a good offer. Henry went on, eyes still on the yard. Cash up front, talk of progress and opportunity. Mary turned them down, I said. I did too, but it was her voice they heard. She said, you do not sell a home to someone who is already picturing it flattened, Henry added. He looked at me, then really looked. You think Amanda forgot that he asked? I did not answer. The question did not have a simple answer, and we both knew it. Through the kitchen window, I could see into the heart of the house. The glass was dirty, but not enough to hide everything. The outlines of the cabinets were there, the old counter, the space where the table used to sit. On the floor in the middle of that empty room, I saw the wooden panel. It was a simple rectangle, a shade darker than the rest of the boards, with a small recessed ring for a handle. I had built it when Amanda was still in diapers, crawling around banging pots together on that same floor. The hatch led down into a low, narrow maintenance cellar, one I used to check the pipes, and lay new lines when we were too poor to hire anyone. Over the years, it became more than that. A place for old boxes, for records, for things I did not want out in the open, but could not bring myself to throw away. Seeing it now untouched made something harden inside me. They do not know about that, Henry said quietly. Maybe they do, I replied. Maybe that is why they wanted this land so badly. He frowned, tracing the brim of his cap with his thumb. We should call someone, he said. The county, the sheriff. Not yet, I told him. He gave me a look, half question, half concern. Calling the law means saying the whole thing out loud, I said. Once you do that, it stops belonging to you. I am not ready for that. Henry nodded slowly. I get that, but do not wait too long. Paper moves fast once it starts moving. We stood there a few minutes more. A truck appeared at the far end of the road, dust kicking up behind it. We moved back toward Henry's pickup, out of sight lines. The oncoming truck slowed near the gate, a young man in a reflective vest leaning out the window. He stepped down, checked the lock on the chain, glanced around like he was counting trees. For a moment his eyes swept the road, and Henry dropped his hand from where it had been shading his face. I slipped the phone a little lower at my side. The young man did not notice us, or if he did not care. He climbed back in and drove off. Henry let out a short breath. They are staking the place, he said, making sure no one walks back in. I took one last look at the gate, the folder half buried in mud, the sign the hatch visible through the glass. All of it sat there still and waiting. We got back into Henry's truck and headed toward the main road. The diner by the highway was already open, neon sign flickering, a couple of pickup trucks lined outside. Inside, the air smelled like bacon and old coffee. We slid into a booth by the window. A waitress with tired eyes brought 2 mugs without asking. Henry tapped his spoon against his cup. You did not answer me earlier, he said. About what I asked. Whether Amanda knows what she is caught up in. I watched a semi roll past on the highway, the reflection of its lights moving across the diner wall. I think she knows some of it, I said. The parts that sound good when you say them out loud. And the rest, he asked. The rest she is not looking at. He nodded, as if that matched something he knew about the world. You still drink this cheap coffee? He said, a small smile at the corner of his mouth. I took a sip. It was bitter and weak, but warm. I said it was not the worst I had had. Back at the motel, the sky had grown darker, the gray deepening into something closer to charcoal. The first hints of thunder rolled far away, low and drawn out. I sat at the small table by the window, opened my laptop, and watched the screen flare to life. My inbox waited ordinary and indifferent. I started a new message and typed in Samuel Briggs, the name appearing as soon as I hit the first few letters. He had not changed his email address in 20 years. That felt like something solid. My fingers hesitated over the keys. Putting words down would make it real. But the time for pretending had passed. Samuel. I wrote, I need your help. The property at Willow Creek has been transferred. Fairland Development is listed as buyer. I believe the sale was not authorized. Amanda may be involved. There are documents and details I cannot explain yet, but I have reason to think something is wrong. Please call when you can. I read it twice, corrected nothing, and hit send. Outside, the first drops of rain began to hit the window, soft at first, then more frequent. The sound bled into the room, mixing with the faint hum of the air conditioner and the ticking of the cheap clock by the bed. I closed the laptop and sat there with my hands folded on the table. I did not know what Samuel would say or how fast he would answer. But the moment the email left my outbox, I felt a small shift inside me, like the weight had moved from one side of the scale to the other. The law was a slow thing, but it was still a thing. A flash of light caught my eye. Through the narrow gap in the curtain, I could see the highway in the distance and the outline of the Fairland sign down the road. Lightning flared over the fields, white and sudden, and for 1 second the red letters on that sign glowed bright against the dark. Then the sky swallowed it again. The thunder followed a moment later, rolling low and steady. The rain picked up, tapping harder against the glass. I sat there and listened, the sound filling the small room, the image of that lit sign lingering in my mind. Somewhere past the fields and the paper and the signatures, the house was still standing, and under its kitchen floor the hatch was still there. The city glass caught the morning light and scattered it in every direction, so bright it made my eyes water. Cars moved in long, slow lines, horns buried under the hum of engines and footsteps. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, hand on the cool metal of the building entrance, feeling like a man about to walk into a place that did not speak his language anymore. Inside the lobby smelled like new carpet and strong perfume. Soft music floated out of hidden speakers. People in tailored clothes walked past me, eyes on their phones, badges clipped neatly to their shirts. I pressed the elevator button and watched the numbers glow one by one until the doors opened. The ride up felt too smooth. No rattling, no delay, just a quiet ascent. When the doors slid open on the 10th floor, I stepped into a hallway lined with glass. The Fairland logo was etched into one wall, all clean lines and friendly curves, as if a company could smile. A young woman sat behind a sleek white desk, her hair tied back. Her nails painted the same pale color as the walls. "Can I help you?" she asked. I told her my name said I was here to see Amanda Lawson. Her eyes flickered just a little. Then she picked up the phone, spoke in a low voice, and listened. After a moment, she nodded and pointed me toward a glass door at the end of the hall. Amanda's office was bright and cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, the building stacked up like blocks in a child's careful game. She sat behind a glass desk posture, straight, a slim laptop in front of her. Her hair was pinned back. Makeup perfect, the kind of effort you make when you are always on display. Beside her stood Derek. He leaned against a credenza sleeves rolled to his elbows, watch catching the light. He had the easy stance of a man who believed every room belonged to him the moment he walked in. Amanda smiled when she saw me, but it did not reach her eyes. "Dad," she said, "you should have called." I stepped closer, feeling the carpet give a little under my shoes. "You did not answer when I did," I replied. Her smile faltered, then settled back into something polite. "We have a meeting soon," she said. "Busy week. What brings you down here?" I looked at her for a long second. She looked older than the last time I had seen her, more polished, but there was something in her eyes that reminded me of the girl who used to stay up late, reading under the blanket with a flashlight. "Why did you sell my house?" I asked. She dropped her gaze to the papers on the desk, lips pressed together for a moment. "Because I needed a new start," she said. "You needed care." "It was the practical thing. It is just a house, Dad." I shook my head. "No. It is the home your mother built with her heart. You are losing yours by forgetting that." Her fingers tightened around the pen she was holding, knuckles whitening. The room went quiet enough that I could hear the faint buzz of the air system above us. Derek pushed himself off the credenza and moved a step closer, his voice soft, but edged. "You know, he said some men just cannot move on. Maybe that is why they end up alone." I turned my head and looked at him. His eyes were steady, watching for a reaction. I did not give him one. There was a photo on the shelf behind Amanda in a silver frame. She and Derek stood on a beach, somewhere sand clean and white water behind them, so blue it almost looked painted. She was laughing, head tilted back, hair caught in the wind. It looked like happiness, the kind that shines bright, as long as the camera flash is on. I remembered another picture, one of her standing barefoot in our yard under the apple tree. Face sticky with juice, Mary's hand resting on her shoulder. No frames, no perfect angles, just a real moment that no one had posed for. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a worn envelope. Its corners were soft, softened by years of being handled. "This is for you," I said, placing it gently on the glass between us. She looked at it, but did not reach out. "What is it?" she asked. "A reminder," I answered. I held her gaze for another second, hoping to see some crack in the surface she was holding up between us. There was something there, but it was buried deep. I turned toward the door. Behind me, Derek let out a short laugh. "You should let her live her life," he said. "It is not 1980 anymore." Halfway to the elevator, my chest tightened. Not a sharp pain, just a heavy pull, like someone had placed a hand there and refused to move it. I stopped and set my palm over the scar beneath my shirt, breathed until the weight eased. It felt like trying to say a name that no longer belonged to you. I did not look back. In the hallway, the glass walls reflected strangers. For a second, I caught sight of myself in one of them, shoulders slightly hunched, hair more gray than I remembered. I hardly recognized that man. I paused near the corner where I could see back into her office through the reflection. Amanda had opened the envelope now. The photograph lay in her hand, the three of us standing on the old porch, Mary in the middle. Amanda squeezed between us, all sun and smiles and hope. I watched her thumb trace the edge of the picture. Her eyes glistened just for a heartbeat before she blinked hard and set the photo down on the desk. When Derek spoke to her, she forced a smile, too quick, too bright, the kind that cracks when no one is looking. I left before she could see me watching. Outside, the city hit me all at once. Noise like the smell of exhaust and food and rain on hot pavement. A bus roared past, sending a gust of warm air and grit into my face. I loosened my grip on the building's railing and stepped out onto the sidewalk. Across the street, a billboard showed a perfect family standing in front of a perfect house, all white siding and green lawn, a Fairland logo in the corner. The kind of picture meant to sell a dream. I looked at it for a moment and could not tell if it made me angry or just tired. I walked into a small cafe on the corner. The bell above the door jingled, and the smell of coffee and sugar wrapped around me. I ordered black coffee and took a seat by the window. The cup was too hot when it arrived, cardboard rim, bending slightly under my fingers. Outside, people wove through each other on the sidewalk, some talking, some laughing, some moving so fast they barely seemed to touch the ground. Somewhere up above them, my daughter sat behind a glass desk with a man who thought he knew what it meant to move on. My phone buzzed. A message from Henry. "You talked to her?" "Yes." "How did it go?" I watched my own reflection in the cafe window layered over the rushing street. "She is doing fine," I typed. "She is just not home?" I left it at that. He did not reply. He did not have to. The coffee cooled as I sat there. The cup softened, losing its perfect shape, folding under its own weight. I finished it anyway. When I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the light had shifted. The sun slipped between buildings, throwing long stripes of brightness across the asphalt. The city looked almost kind for a moment, edges softened by the late afternoon glow. I walked back toward the bus stop, hand slipping into my pocket out of habit. My fingers closed around the iron key, the metal cool against my skin. On the ride back, I stared out the window as the glass towers gave way to lower buildings, then to open land. The reflection of my face hovered over the passing fields. Somewhere behind that reflection, buried under steel and concrete, Amanda's office still stood. Somewhere far ahead, down a quieter road, my house and that hatch waited. That night in the motel room, I set the key on the table beside the lamp. Then my hand drifted up fingertips, brushing the raised line of the scar on my chest. It throbbed once, faint and certain, as if answering something I had not yet said out loud. I looked toward the dark window. City light flickered faintly on the glass, broken in scattered pieces by the cheap curtain. For a moment, in that shifting glow, I thought of Willow Creek again, of the kitchen floor, and the wooden panel at its center of truth, sitting just beneath it, quiet and untouched. Morning slid in through the thin motel curtains, a pale stripe of light across the carpet. I woke before the alarm hand, already reaching for the table where the iron key lay. The metal was cold against my fingers, like it had been waiting longer than I had. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner and the distant rush of cars on the highway. I sat there for a while, just listening, the key pressed into my palm, until it left a small mark. The phone rang a little after 7. It was Samuel. His voice had the same steady weight it always carried. He said he had talked to the county clerk and the title office. There would be a legal inspection today. Fairland's title was listed as pending review. A county officer would meet us on site. "You will not be breaking in," he said. "You will be walking into your own home with the law beside you." That mattered more than I expected it to. Henry picked me up in his truck. Samuel followed in his black sedan, papers resting in a neat stack on the passenger seat. The sky was the color of old steel clouds holding back the sun, the fields on either side still heavy with last week's rain. When we turned onto Willow Creek, the Fairland sign stood where it had stood before. Someone had sprayed a thin red line across the bottom, a quiet act of protest from a neighbor who still believed the land meant something. A county officer waited near the gate jacket, zipped up against the wind clipboard in hand. Samuel handed him a folder. The officer read through each page carefully, lips moving a little with the words. Then he signed the bottom of a form, tore off a copy, and handed it back. He said the same thing Samuel had told me on the phone. Fairland's ownership was not final. The sale was under review. The inspection was lawful. The officer stepped aside. For the first time in months, I walked through the gate and felt the gravel of my own driveway under my feet. The paint on the porch railings had peeled a little more, and the weeds along the steps had grown up curling around the posts. The apple tree's cut trunk still looked raw, pale wood, exposed to the air. The windows were dusty, but familiar. Henry opened the front door. The hinges complained softly. The smell hit me as soon as I stepped in. Dust, dry wood, something faintly sweet underneath, like old soap and sunlight. A smell that knew me. The living room was emptier than I remembered, but the bones of it were the same. The corner where the sofa used to sit. The wall where Mary had hung her cross-stitch and photographs. The groove in the floor near the hallway where Amanda had dropped a toy truck. Over and over, until it left a mark. I walked into the kitchen. The light came in at an angle through the window above the sink, picking up the dust in the air. There, near the center of the room, the outline of the wooden hatch was clear. I knelt slowly, feeling the pull in my chest. My fingers brushed away the thin film of dirt around the edges. The small iron ring was still there, rusted but firm. Henry and Samuel stood just inside the doorway. No one spoke. I took the key from my pocket. It slid into the old lock with more ease than I expected. For a moment it refused to turn as if it were testing me. Then there was a dull click, the sound of something giving up its hold. I lifted the hatch. Cold air rose from below, carrying with it the smell of damp earth and metal. The steps were narrow and steep. Henry offered to go first, but I shook my head. "It is my turn," I said. I held on to the railing I had installed decades ago and went down one careful step at a time. The flashlight beam moved ahead of me over old pipes and the rough stone of the foundation walls. The basement was smaller than I remembered, but it felt deeper somehow. In the far corner, the old furnace sat silent, coated in a red skin of rust. Beside it, tucked against the wall, was the wooden chest. Mary's chest. It was about the size of a large toolbox made of dark wood worn smooth at the edges. Dust lay on the lid in a thin layer. I wiped it away with the edge of my hand. My fingers shook, but I was not sure if it was from effort or something else. For a second, I just rested my palm on the lid. Then I lifted the latch. The hinges creaked softly as it opened. On top were things that smelled like our life. A baby blanket folded with care, the color almost gone, but the fabric still soft. A handful of old photographs, edges curling faces smiling up from another time. A bundle of letters tied with a ribbon I recognized as one Mary used to wear in her hair when she was young. I lifted them gently and set them aside. Beneath them was her shawl, still faintly scented with lavender. Under the shawl, wrapped in wax paper, was a thick envelope, heavier than it looked. The front had my name written in Mary's handwriting. Under that, there were printed words I had not seen in years. I tore the tape and unfolded the papers inside. The flashlight beam caught the seal and the company name. Oil rights issued to Lawson, Mechanical Engineer, 1983. No expiration. Secondary rights to drill under specified acreage. My hand shook when I realized what it meant. I was not sure if I had just found salvation or another way to lose her. Henry's voice floated down from the steps, low and careful. "What do you have there, Ed?" I swallowed, feeling my throat dry. "Old promises," I said. "And some that never should have been made." Samuel came down each step measured. He took the papers from my hand and read them slowly, moving his lips, as his eyes ran over the lines. After a while, he looked up. "These rights are still valid," he said. "If there is any yield under this land, they could be worth a small fortune now." Upstairs, the house was quiet. Down here, the air felt heavier. Henry let out a long breath. "Now I see why Derek pushed so hard," he said. "He was not chasing a house. He was chasing what is under it." Samuel flipped to another page, then another. "Edward," he said, "this confirms it. The property is solely in your name, and these rights are a protected asset." Amanda did not have the authority to sell. "So the sale is invalid," I said. "Legally, yes," Samuel replied. "But if we prove that the next questions will be about intent signatures, who knew what, there is a good chance your daughter faces charges. Fraud, forgery. Maybe worse." The word daughter landed harder than fraud. I stared at the numbers printed in the margins, estimated values in small type. The more I looked, the less I felt like the owner of anything. I felt smaller somehow, like the house had been guarding more than I ever could. Silence filled the basement. Dust floated in the flashlight beam, turning slowly in the air. "What do you want to do?" Henry asked. I folded the documents back into the envelope, pressing the edges flat. "I do not know," I said. "Not yet." We carried the envelope and the chest upstairs. The kitchen looked different, with afternoon light pouring in brighter, almost harsh. Samuel spread the papers on the old table, checking seals, dates, signatures. Henry stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the yard. A car passed on the road outside its engine, a faint growl through the walls. Samuel stacked the papers again and slid them into his briefcase. "I will start the process," he said. Quietly at first. "We will see how Fairland reacts." He put a hand on my shoulder, firm and brief, then headed for the door. The county officer followed him out, already on his radio voice, low and professional. Henry lingered on the porch, looking out over the field. "You did good coming back here," he said. "Whatever happens next, at least you know the ground you are standing on." I nodded, but did not answer. When they both left, the yard fell into a softer quiet. The sun had slipped lower, turning the field beyond the fence a deep yellow. I sat down on the top step of the porch, the old wood creaking under my weight. The envelope rested in my lap for a long time before I set it on the step beside me. My hands felt empty without it. Then I remembered the letter Samuel had handed me before he left, pulled from the bottom of the chest, my name written on it in familiar curved ink. I unfolded it slowly. Mary's words were simple and straight, like she was sitting beside me, talking in that calm way she had when the world felt too big. She wrote about the house, about Amanda, about how some truths were not ready to be spoken until the right moment came. At the end, she wrote 3 lines. "Keep the house if you can. Keep our daughter if it is still possible. And if you have to choose, protect the truth, even from the ones you love." My eyes blurred halfway through the last sentence. I blinked until the words came back into focus. The porch light flickered above me, buzzed once, then settled into a steady glow as the day began to fade. Crickets started up in the tall grass. Somewhere down the road, an engine turned over the sound, distant but clear, then grew softer as it moved away or closer, I could not tell. I sat there with the letter open in my hands, the old boards warm beneath me, the air cooling on my skin. The house stood quiet behind me, the hatch closed again over the secrets it had kept. The truth was no longer asleep, and the night had only just begun. Rain had been falling since dawn. The courthouse steps were slick with water, and the flag above hung heavy, its colors muted by the storm. I stood under the stone archway for a moment, before walking in, shaking the cold from my coat. The smell of wet concrete and old wood filled the air, the kind that clings to every courthouse in America. Inside, everything was still. The floor shone with polish, the walls lined with faded portraits of judges long gone. Their eyes followed you as if reminding everyone that justice was a wait, not a word. Samuel waited for me on a bench near the courtroom door, papers stacked neatly beside him. His expression was calm, the kind of calm that comes from decades of knowing how truth behaves when cornered. "You ready?" he asked quietly. "As I'll ever be," I said. He rose and placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that said more than words ever could. Then we walked in together. The courtroom was smaller than I remembered from my younger years when I used to fix the judge's furnace every winter. The air hummed faintly under the lights. Fairland's attorney stood by the table. Hair perfect, voice smooth. He was the type who wore his confidence like another layer of clothing. Amanda sat behind him, her hands clenched in her lap. Derek was beside her looking at his phone, until the bailiff told him to put it away. He smirked, a half-smile that never reached his eyes. When the judge entered the room, rose. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor echoed like a drumbeat. Fairland's lawyer spoke first. His tone was polished, practiced. He said their transaction was clean, transparent by the book. He said I was an old man confused by paperwork, clinging to memories instead of law. The words were elegant, even kind, but they dripped with arrogance. When he finished, Samuel stood. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "Your Honor," he said, "this case is not about confusion. It's about omission. My client, Mr. Lawson, was granted a life estate by his late wife's will, ensuring his legal right to reside in that property until his death." He handed the documents to the clerk. The judge took them, adjusted her glasses, and began to read. The room grew quiet, only the soft hum of fluorescent lights above breaking the silence. Fairland's lawyer frowned. "That clause was never filed," he said, his tone brittle. Samuel's voice remained steady. "It was filed, Your Honor, in 1997, notarized and recorded with the county clerk." The judge turned a page, then nodded slightly. "Proceed, Mr. Briggs." Samuel glanced toward me. "Mr. Lawson, please tell the court why this clause matters." I stood, my palms damp, my heart steady but heavy. "My wife wanted the house to stay ours," I said. "She knew the world changes, money changes, but land holds memory. She wanted me to live there until I was gone, and then for it to pass to our daughter." I paused, my eyes resting on Amanda. She didn't look up. "It wasn't just a house to us," I said. "It was where she grew and where Mary rested." The judge nodded once and gestured for me to sit. Then came Derek's turn. He walked to the witness stand like a man taking the stage shoulders loose, confidence rehearsed. The clerk asked him to swear the oath, and he did, smiling faintly as he placed his hand on the Bible. The lawyer questioned him about the sale. He spoke easily at first, describing the process, Amanda's consent, the legal documents. His tone was smooth, almost too smooth. Then came the question. "When did you first inspect the property?" Derek hesitated. His jaw tightened. "Before or after the contract was signed," the lawyer pressed. "Before," he said finally. "I checked the basement before finalizing the deal." The words fell heavy, and the entire courtroom froze. The judge's pen stopped mid-note. For a full second, no one breathed. Samuel stood. His voice was calm, but cold. "Your Honor, that statement confirms trespass prior to ownership transfer. Fairland acted with prior knowledge of private assets." The judge turned toward Derek. Mr. Cole, did you or anyone on behalf of Fairland access the property before the sale was complete? Derek looked to the lawyer who tried to object, but the judge's voice cut clean through his words. Overruled. Answer the question. Derek's lips parted, but his voice barely carried. Yes. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Greed always sounded the same, desperate, just wearing a different suit. Samuel walked to the clerk's table, placing one more document before the judge. The oil rights certificate, the one Mary had kept hidden for decades. This, he said, is the reason behind the sale. Not the house, not the land, but the rights beneath it. Rights belonging solely to Mr. Lawson since 1983. A murmur swept across the benches. The judge's eyes narrowed. Samuel continued. Fairland knew of these rights through Mr. Cole's unauthorized inspection. They manipulated Ms. Lawson into a sale she had no power to execute. He turned to Amanda, his tone gentler. She was a victim of deception, not its architect. The judge leaned back in her chair, the sound of leather creaking in the quiet. After a long pause, she spoke. This court finds the transaction nullified. All property and rights revert to Mr. Lawson effective immediately. An investigation into Fairland's practices will proceed. The gavel struck once hard enough to echo through the walls. For a moment, everything blurred. The voices, the movement, even the sound of rain outside. Derek sat motionless, his smirk gone. The lawyer whispered in his ear, but he didn't respond. He rose, straightened his jacket, and left without a word. Amanda stayed seated, staring down at her hands. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red, her face pale. The clerk began collecting the exhibits, the shuffle of paper filling the silence. I stayed seated, hands folded, unable to move. Justice had come, but it didn't feel like triumph. Only a quiet release. When I stepped outside, the rain had grown heavier. The courthouse steps gleamed under it. Amanda stood at the bottom coat, clinging to her shoulders, hair plastered to her face. She looked like she hadn't moved since the verdict. I walked toward her, each step splashing against the stone. She didn't look up until I stopped in front of her. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. Her voice broke on the last word. Part of me wanted to tell her it was all right that we could start over. The rest of me knew it wasn't time yet. I nodded once. I know. She stepped closer, hesitating like she might say more, then stopped. The rain was louder now, drumming against the street, masking whatever she whispered next. She turned and walked toward a waiting cab, her figure blurring through the storm. I watched until the taillights disappeared. Samuel came out then, umbrella in hand, coat damp at the edges. He stood beside me without speaking for a moment. You did what you had to, he said finally. I looked at the street, at the ripples spreading across the puddles. I didn't do it for the house, I said. He nodded. I know. The rain softened, falling in thin silver threads. Across the lawn, the flag began to stir again in the wind. I stood there breathing in the smell of wet earth and asphalt, the scent of something ending and something else, waiting to begin. And in that rhythm of rain, faint but certain, I thought I heard Mary's voice again. Not in words, but in the quiet between them. The storm had passed, but forgiveness still stood far off on the horizon, patient waiting for its turn to come. The morning after the hearing came in soft and gray. The rain had stopped, but the world still looked washed out, like the sky had not quite decided what color it wanted to be. I sat on the front porch with a mug of coffee, watching steam rise in thin threads and disappear into the cool air. The chair beside me was still empty, the way it had been for months. The silence was almost a companion by now. It sat there with me in the early hours, filling the spaces where voices used to be. The boards under my feet were still dark from the night storm. Out near the road, the gravel drive shone in patches where the water had settled. The apple tree in the yard dripped slowly, each drop hitting the ground with its own small sound. The mail truck came and went. A couple of bills, a flyer, nothing that mattered. I set them on the little table by the door and went back to watching the street, not expecting anything else. Sometime in the afternoon, I heard it. The slow crunch of tires on gravel. Not the rumble of a delivery truck, not Henry's old pickup. Something lighter, hesitant. I set the mug down and stood. Amanda's car pulled up just inside the gate. She sat there for a moment with the engine off, hands on the wheel, eyes closed. Then she opened the door and stepped out, closing it quietly behind her. There was no makeup today, no office clothes, no armor. Just my daughter in a plain sweater and jeans, shoulders drawn in like she was trying to make herself smaller. In her hand, she held a weathered envelope, the paper soft at the edges. She walked up the path and stopped at the bottom step. Her voice came out low, threaded with something fragile. "Dad, I found this in Derek's things." She looked down at the envelope, then back up at me. "It is from Mom." My fingers closed around the railing to steady myself. She climbed the steps and held the envelope out. I took it carefully, already knowing what I would see. Mary's handwriting curved across the front. Thin strokes, steady and patient. Just my name. I had not seen it on a new envelope in years, but my hands remembered the feeling of opening her letters from the plant when we were young, when she would write little notes on napkins and slip them into my lunch. I eased the flap open. The paper inside had yellowed, but the ink was still clear. "If you ever forget where you belong, remember this house was not built from wood, but from love and faith." I read the sentence twice, maybe 3 times. The air around me seemed to narrow until all that existed was the movement of my eyes over her words. I could almost hear her voice again, the same calm tone she used when life tested us. She never built walls, only bridges. Amanda sat down slowly on the chair beside mine. Her hands came up to her face, fingers pressing against her eyes. I heard the small, choked sound she tried to hide. I did not reach out. I did not tell her it would be all right. I just let the silence stretch between us, softer, now different. Sometimes forgiveness does not start with an apology. It starts with 2 people willing to sit in the same quiet, without turning away. After a while, she lowered her hands. Her eyes were red, cheeks wet. "I did not know he had this," she said. "I swear I did not." "I know," I answered. She looked at me with something like disbelief, as if she had been ready for judgment, and was not sure what to do when it did not come. "Can I come inside for a while?" she asked. I stepped aside and held the door. The house greeted her with the old familiar sounds. The hinge that always made a small click when the door shut. The floorboard by the hallway that complained under weight. The faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. She paused in the living room, eyes moving slowly over the space. "You kept everything the same," she said. "It is easier to remember that way," I told her. Light filtered through the front window, touching the dust on the mantel, where Mary's framed cross-stitch still hung. Amanda walked over to it, running a finger gently along the frame, then turned toward the back of the house. "Can we go down there?" she asked. I knew what she meant. We went to the kitchen. The hatch sat where it always had its outline, darker than the boards around it. I pulled it open, the cool breath of the basement rising up to meet us. I went down first this time, one hand on the rail, the other holding a flashlight. She followed slowly. When we reached the bottom, the air smelled of earth and iron and old paper. Mary's wooden chest waited in the corner where we had left it. I carried it to the small workbench and set it down. The latch opened with a familiar resistance. Inside, the contents were as we had found them. The baby blanket, the bundle of letters, the pressed flower faded to pale brown, and the photograph I had given Amanda earlier in my mind more times than I could count. I lifted it out and handed it to her. Her 6th birthday, the 3 of us on the front porch. Mary in a blue dress with flower on her cheek. Amanda with a crooked smile and frosting on her chin, and me behind them both, one hand on each shoulder. The sun had been bright that day. You could almost see it in the photo clinging to their hair. Amanda stared at the picture for a long time. "Did Mom know this would happen?" she asked. Her voice shook, but she held the photograph steady. "Your mother always knew how to protect this home," I said. "She built it out of love, not bricks." She nodded slowly, eyes never leaving the picture. We stood there a while, in the dim light of the basement, surrounded by pipes, stone, and the quiet hum of something older than either of us. It felt like we were standing at the bottom of our own history, finally looking at it together, instead of alone. When we went back upstairs, the afternoon had slipped toward evening. The sky outside the kitchen window carried that soft orange line along the horizon that Kansas gets just before the sun drops. Amanda made tea, moving carefully around the kitchen, like she was afraid to disturb the ghosts. She opened the wrong cabinet for cups, then smiled when she remembered where Mary kept them. "Can I stay here tonight?" she asked when we sat at the table. "Just for one night." "You can stay as long as you need," I said. She went to the living room and settled on the old couch, the one with the sag in the middle, where decades of bodies had rested. She pulled a blanket over herself, the same one Mary used to wrap around her during winter storms when the power went out. I turned off the main light and left only the lamp in the corner. Its glow spread across the room in a warm circle. From my chair, I watched her breathing, slow, watched tension leave her shoulders bit by bit. The lines around her mouth softened. Sleep found her like it used to when she was a little girl worn out from a long day. The last light from the porch slipped in through the window, a thin strip across the floor that climbed up the side of the couch and touched her face. For a moment, in that soft light, she looked like the child who used to wait for me at that same window, pressing her hands against the glass when she saw my truck coming up the road. Something in my chest eased. Not all the way, not cleanly, but enough to let air in. I leaned back and let the chair creak under my weight. The house felt different now. The emptiness that had lived in its corners for months had loosened its grip. The rooms did not echo in the same way. The walls seemed to hold their breath a little less. Outside, night finally settled in. A dog barked somewhere down the road. A lone car passed its headlights, sweeping briefly across the curtains before disappearing. The wind moved through the apple tree and rattled a loose piece of gutter, a sound I had heard 1,000 times, but had never been as grateful for as I was now. I stayed where I was, listening to the sound of my daughter sleeping in the next room, and the old house creaking around us like it was adjusting to something new, or maybe something remembered. The porch light glowed through the glass, steady and patient, casting its soft shape across the floor. The old clock above the mantel ticked slower these days, as if it too had learned patience. Morning light crept through the curtains, soft and gold, spreading across the floor like a quiet blessing. Outside, the air smelled of damp earth and apple blossoms. The frost was gone, and the yard had begun to breathe again. 6 months had passed since the hearing. The house had grown calm, no longer haunted by echoes or silence. Amanda lived here again. She had sold her car, moved back to Kansas, and returned to teaching. Every morning she stood by the window, checking the young apple tree that had pushed its roots into the same soil where the old one once stood. Its branches were thin, trembling in the wind, but they held tight to the light. I used part of the settlement to build something Mary had always talked about, Mary's Hands Foundation, a small fund to teach orphaned kids a trade to give them the kind of start life rarely offers. The first boy we helped was 16, quiet and careful with his tools. Watching him fix an old carburetor in Henry's garage reminded me of myself at his age, covered in grease, trying to make something work with more heart than knowledge. Amanda would stop by after school sometimes, helping with the paperwork or bringing food for the kids. She never said much, but she always stayed longer than she planned. One of the boys drew her a picture of the apple tree out back with a note that said, "Thank you for believing." I found it pinned to the fridge a week later. Life returned in pieces, small and steady. The house sounded different now. There were footsteps again, the scrape of chairs on the kitchen floor, the faint hum of Amanda singing when she forgot I could hear her. In the evenings, I would sit on the porch with a cup of coffee while she painted the fence. The sun would fall low behind her, and the smell of fresh paint would mix with the spring air. One evening, as the sky turned amber, she put down the brush and looked over her shoulder. Her face was flushed from the heat, her hair pulled back loose. "Dad," she said softly, "I know why you never pressed charges." Her voice carried across the yard, quiet but certain. "You wanted me to learn." I leaned on the porch rail, feeling the wood warm beneath my hands. "I didn't need to win, sweetheart. I just needed you to know where home truly is." She nodded, eyes glistening, but not from tears. The kind of light you see when someone finally understands. The sun slipped lower burning gold across the fresh paint. For a moment I thought I saw Mary standing by the porch steps, her dress caught in the wind, watching us both. The vision lingered only a second, but it left the air soft and still. Later after dinner, Amanda went upstairs early. I stayed behind, listening to the house settle around me. The clock ticked steady on the mantel. The sound of her footsteps moved across the ceiling light and unhurried. Through the window, the lamp's reflection caught the faint motion of the curtains swaying with the wind. I thought about how much time we waste waiting for apologies, when sometimes all forgiveness needs is space to grow. Mary used to say love was like carpentry. It isn't about what you build, but how you repair what's been broken. I think I understand now. The foundation was growing, the house was alive again, and Amanda was finding her way. The seasons had done what they always do. They moved forward. I stood up and walked to the window. The apple tree swayed gently under the porch light. Its leaves shimmered like coins in the breeze. A soft wind lifted the curtain beside me, carrying the scent of blossoms through the room. Outside, the willow trees whispered above the fence. The stars began to show one by one, faint at first, then brighter as the sky darkened. The sound of Amanda's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs. I closed my eyes for a moment and listened to it. It had been a long road back to that sound. Somewhere in that quiet, I felt Mary again. Not as a ghost, not as memory, but as presence, the kind that stays when everything else has gone. My daughter had sold my house while I was in the hospital, but she forgot one thing. Home isn't in the land. It's in the heart that finds its way back. The wind moved through the trees, slow and tender, and the light inside the house glowed steady against the night.